Jon Gil is getting hyped up this spring training. Could he be a realistic option for the Atlanta Braves this year? I'll answer that question and more on today's part 2 mailbag episode of Locked On Braves.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. Also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, as always, Jake Mastroianni. Been covering the Atlanta Braves in both the written and podcast form for over 10 years now, and this is Locked On Braves, your daily connection to all things Atlanta Braves. On today's episode, we're going to have part 2 of our weekly mailbag episode. Had so many questions, I couldn't get it all done in one episode, so we got a part 2 today. So if you didn't hear your question answered on the episode dropped earlier on Friday, it will be in this episode of Locked On Braves. And a lot of those, as always, all over the place. But we got Jon Gil questions out there. We got over-unders questions, how I'd rank the offense, starting rotation, and bullpen right now. A bunch of questions about your Atlanta Braves to answer on today's bonus mailbag episode of Locked On Braves. And let's jump right into those questions right now. This first one coming from Stephen Buchanan, who says, any chance that Jon Gil makes his debut at some point this year, considering he is getting compared to for call? So yes, it is spring hopes eternal, right? There's a lot of excitement. We've heard a lot of excitement about J.R. Ritchie, Garrett Ballman, Jon Gil, Alex Lodies, pretty much any prospect in camp right now. They're getting a ton of love at the moment. And Jon Gil getting, it's also Wilson Betterment, comparisons as too. That didn't necessarily work out. But I think part of this too is that everybody knows the Braves need a shortstop. And maybe that a guy like Jon Gil, who made some strides last year, got up to AA. I'm sure that's just increasing the excitement. Now it wasn't announced, and this wasn't announced before I finished recording the first mailbag episode. Carlos Carrasco is going to start the game on Saturday. You're going to have some of the veterans going there, like Mike Yastrzemski. But Jon Gil is also going to be part of that group on Saturday that will be traveling to play the Rays. So we'll get our first look at him. But to answer the question here from Steven, I think it's still a very small chance that we see Jon Gil make his debut this year. A lot of things would have to go wrong in order for that to happen, because you signed Hassan Kim to $20 million, and there's hope now that he could be back in early May. You have Mauricio Dubon backing him up. It would almost take another injury to one or both of them, or just awful play, and neither of those are good things. And it also might take something happening to Ozzie. Now, you still have Nacho that is probably higher up on the depth chart. It also would take Jon Gil going to AA and just completely tearing it up, which Southern League is not a great place for any guy trying to tear it up. It would take a lot for Jon Gil to make his debut this year. But is it out of the question? No, because we've seen the Braves, do that before for a player who gets to AA and does tear it up, that they won't hesitate to call him up if it makes sense. But in order for it to make sense, it means a lot of things have gone wrong on the Braves' current roster. And I certainly don't want that to be the case. Next question comes from Matt Olson, a burner, who says, where do you rank the Braves rotation, offense, and bullpen if the season started tomorrow? And I've been agreeing a lot with Matt Olson burner lately. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but we've been on the same wavelength a lot. But I don't know that we'll be on the same wavelength here, because I think you're a little bit more down on the rotation and lineup than I am. I still consider it, today, I would rank it as a top 10 rotation. Now, that is assuming everyone is healthy, and that is also assuming that Spencer Strider is going to be a number 2. And even if those things don't happen, I still believe it has the ability to be a top 15 rotation. Fangraphs has them as the 10th based on projected F4, so they have them just in that top 10. I'm very much a believer in Spencer Strider, and that he's going to figure it out. And if he and Sale are, top of the rotation, top 10, top 15 pitchers, I think this rotation is going to be one of the best in baseball. The lineup, I'm actually starting to feel more confident about the lineup group than I am even the rotation. Even though I said all offseason, I have a lot of concerns with this lineup. But when I did the episode earlier this week, apologize, I put out a lot of content. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but when I was putting the lineup together, I was excited about the options in this lineup. I feel very good about the top 5. Acuna, Profar, Olson, Riley, Baldwin. I feel really good about those 5 guys. I'm hopeful in Ozzie and Michael Harris that they can bounce back. Dubon against lefties, I think, is going to be fine. Can he handle himself well enough against righties? And then, Yastrzemski against righties, I feel really good about. And especially if you can get everybody healthy at the same time, you get Murphy back, you get Kim back. I just really like the dynamics of this lineup. And with what I talked about earlier this week, okay, it was my opening day roster predictions is the episode that I was talking about where I did lineup construction, and I had a lot of fun going through there, putting the lineup together because I think there's so many good options. That coupled with the other bonus episode I did this week on Anton Richardson, I'm starting to feel a lot more confident in this lineup being top 10. And if everything clicks, I think it's one of the best in baseball. Again, the bullpen, I think, is top 10. Oh, and Fangraphs has the Braves offense, their lineup projected 8th based on projected F4. So they also have them in the top 10. The bullpen, Fangraphs has them 10th based on projected F4. I think this group right now is constructed is a top 10 bullpen, but I could see it going either way. I could see things falling apart really quickly. If something happens to E and or Suarez, I think this bullpen just absolutely dumpster dives really quickly. I could also see it going the other direction. If guys like Hayden Harris, Tazel Hernandez, Giancarlo Solara, take steps forward. If veterans like Ian Hamilton, James Karinchak, figure things out and rebound, I could see this bullpen being one of the best in baseball. And that's just the cases with bullpen every year. You never really know going in. I think on paper, as constructed, it has the chance to be a top 10 bullpen as is. I could see it completely falling apart. I could see it being a top 5 or one of the best bullpens in baseball. Next question from Anthony Del Sandro says, does AA focus too much on defense for depth signing? Braves always seem to have plenty of guys that can field, but not hit it all. Respect your question here, Anthony, but that's why they're bench players. If they get hit and also field, they would be starting somewhere. So it's really hard to find those players who are, bad enough to be on the bench, but good enough to be able to play great defense and hit. It's just really hard to find. And so ideally on your bench, you want somebody that can at least handle the glove in an injury situation. Because like I said, if they get hit and they can play defense, they'd be starting. It's really hard to find those guys for the bench. Now, could the Braves do a better job at having some of those guys? Yeah, but that's why they're bench players. Calvin McDonald says, what's your percentage of Ronald Acuna Jr. being a Brave in 2030? There's no way A is going to hand out a $40+ million a year to him, especially with his right knees or with his knees. I'm in the camp of backing the Brink truck to him, but I'm also just a fan. And from a fan perspective, I completely get this. I'd put the odds very, very low, though. But again, a lot will be determined based on the upcoming CBA, which we talked about in the first mailbag episode today. A new CBA might make it harder for the Braves to give him $40 million a year because then it's not going to allow you to do much else. But that's going to be the same possible constraints that other teams have too. If everybody's working within the same framework, it's going to be harder for every team to hand out these high AAV deals because it's not going to allow you to do other things to complete your roster. It's really difficult to talk about any contract situations beyond 2026 because the CBA could completely just change things. But I'd still put the odds at very low that Ronald's here past 2030 or in 2030. And then Grayson says, I still think the 23 Braves offense is being brushed off by people because of juiced balls. While they were juiced, everyone had them in Atlanta, still had the best offense in baseball, including the Dodgers. I know they didn't have Shohei yet. The question is, can they be that team again? Well, you can't say the baseballs were juiced or Mass is going to absolutely destroy you in the comment section. But to your point with the baseballs traveling better, I think that's safe to say based on the data out there. The Braves still way out past everyone, including the Dodgers. So your point there is valid. But as I pointed out in past videos, a lot of that was because the whole group stayed healthy. And we haven't seen that since 2023. And I think that's a big part of it. It was also just an outlier year. Like that is a once in a lifetime year. Everybody stayed healthy. Everybody absolutely destroyed the baseball, had their best season at the same time. And it did help that the baseballs were traveling a little bit better that year. Not at a record rate or anything like that, but they were traveling better than they have at least the past 2 years. So again, I understand the point that you're saying. I do believe that this offense, if they stay healthy, can be one of the best in all of baseball, again, as I said at the top of this episode. But, again, 2023 was just a perfect storm for what happened. But I do agree overall with what you're saying. I think this offense can get back to being one of the best in baseball. It really just does come down to the guys staying healthy. And if they can do that, I feel like they'll be right back up there close to where they were before. All right, I got several more questions to get to on part 2 of this mailbag episode of a Locked On Braves, including some more about the rotation, what the Atlanta Braves are going to do. I'll get into those questions here next. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole shebang. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. And now not only can your pick cash in, but it could also send you to the finals. You go out to FanDuel.com right now, you'll see you got your Atlanta Hawks at plus 60,000. Jalen Johnson said they're playing better together as a team now. They think they can make a push for this. If you're really in on it, maybe you get in on the Atlanta Hawks there. Or maybe you're like me. You moved on to baseball season. They got World Series odds, award winner odds, all of that. Ronald Acuna with the third highest odds to win the NL MVP out there. I would imagine Chris Sale, he's out there. He has the 5th best odds to win the National League Cy Young. Did they put Spencer Strider? Yeah, Strider's out there too, plus 2,500. You can see all that at FanDuel.com. Also, please make sure you visit FanDuel.com/play with a plan for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future to get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you now, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Thank you for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day, or might be your second listen of the day too, as we're doing 2 episodes today. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Baseball is back. Spring training games beginning this weekend, and you can lock in by joining the Everydayer Club, which gets you ad-free episodes and access to our group chat on Discord. For the next week or so, you can use code SPRING, SPRING, for a free month of access to the Everydayer Club. Go to LockedOnBraves.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes. Or if you want a little bit more access, you can go to our all access tier. Well, you will get all access episodes with myself and Lindsay, text access with me and Lindsay. We're going to have so much content coming your way as we gear up for the season. You can see all that over at LockedOnBraves.supercast.com. All right, getting back into the bonus questions that we have today. The next one up is from Voltron66, who says, have you heard anything about Nacho taking reps at catcher? He was on the first day of spring. Maybe just depth. Seems like a weird move. I'd agree. It did seem like a weird move, but our guy Gorov, who will continue his top 30 countdown next week, so look out for that. He'll be back on the podcast. He spoke with a scout familiar with Nacho. Last year, he said Nacho would have a lot more value at catcher, and they could see him moving there. Maybe Nacho is testing the waters for a potential change. So it sounds like this is a real possible move for Nacho. We'll have to see in spring training if he starts getting a lot of reps there, but it does sound like this could be a real thing for Nacho Alvarez. Next question from Jay Viz, who says, what approach is the new hitting coach bringing that wasn't there last season? I don't know about anything new that Tim Hires is doing this upcoming season that he didn't do last year. I would expect it to be kind of more of the same, just with better players for hopefully more of the season now. You saw the offense take some steps in the second half. A lot of that probably had to do with Ronald Acuna and Jurickson Profar being more available. But I would imagine to see that continued, patient approach at the plate. I think my only hope is that you continue to see the patient approach that they showed last year, but just being more aggressive on pitches in the zone. Last year, it felt like they were taking pitches just for the sake of taking pitches and to be more patient, but actually having a game plan. And I talked about this on a recent episode as well, comparing the Braves offense to what the Dodgers have done over the last several years. And the difference between the Dodgers and the Braves is that they swing a lot, and they'll even have their share of strikeouts too, but they swing a lot at pitches in the zone, whereas the Braves just swing a lot in general. And if you can combine that approach and have that more patient approach, but chase less pitches out of the zone, swing at more pitches in the zone, obviously that's what you want to do. Hopefully that is going to be more of the emphasis going forward, is just looking for your pitch, not taking pitches just for the sake of taking them, but looking for your pitch and jumping on that when you see it in the zone. Next question comes from the Chop, who says, is there a chance that Martín Pérez is in the rotation on opening day? I think there certainly is. We talked about it in the last episode about J.R. Ritchie. I think he's got a good chance. Look, spring training games start on Saturday. We've already lost 2 starters. There's a good chance you lose another one between now and opening day. That's going to open up the door for a J.R. Ritchie, a Joey Wentz, a Martín Pérez. I talked about it in my opening day roster predictions. I think Perez just makes a lot of sense as a swing man who could spot start for you, but I think also could be a situational lefty too. He's been really good on lefties in his career. So I like Martín Pérez personally, whether it be in the bullpen or whether it be part of the rotation or a 6-man rotation. I think he can bring some value to the roster. So I like the odds of Martín Pérez getting on the opening day roster. Big Dog Fan 73 with a couple of questions. First one says, is there a chance that Waldrep, Schwelly, and Schwalber get back in time this year so the next year will be a full go and ready for spring 27? Assuming there's a spring 27. Not that the world's coming to an end or Jesus is coming back then. I don't know that. But we just don't know if we're going to have a season. Yes, I think there's a really good chance we see all 3 of those guys back at some point this year. I know the Braves have been pretty coy on the returns of Schwellenbach and Waldrep, but just based on what we know from the procedures they had, I think there's a good chance we see both of them back at some point this season. I'm not counting on any of them to really give you much this year, but I do think there's a good chance we see all of them at some point this season, and hopefully that leads into a big 2027 that hopefully we're going to have. And then another one from Big Dog Fan 73. How does the service time work for Schwellenbach? He's only been available for 1 1/3 years, a season's worth of games, but at the end of the season, he'll been on the 40-man roster for 2 3/4 of games. How does that work? So a full year of service time is 172 days on the active roster or the injured list. They have to be on the active 26-man roster when the injury occurs. And this really hurt the Braves with Soroka. You might remember a few years ago, the Braves called up Soroka at the end of the year to make a start. He was right there on the edge of gaining another year of service time. Had he not, the Braves would have carried an extra option on him, could have kept him around for another year. They called him up. He gets injured in that game. They put him on the Major League IL, and he gains that service time, and the Braves lose that option. So yes, he will continue to gain service time. Even on the 60-day IL, it will count towards his service time. A couple of questions here from Calvin Finner. Over under Strider 200 Ks. He struck out 202 batters in 131 1/3 innings in 2022. That is just insane. But I'm going to say the under, because even if his K per 9 gets back up to 10, he's going to have to throw 180 innings. And I'm not sure that he gets to that number this year. Over under on Sale 200 strikeouts. He'd have to throw 165 innings to get there within a K per 9 of around 11. Which is where he's been for his career. So I'm going to take the over on Sale at 200 Ks. I'll take the under on Strider. Acuna 40-40. I'm also going to take the under here. I really don't want to, but he's only done 40 home runs twice. And both of those times it was just over at 41. And both of those times he played 150 or more games. So again, he's just barely gotten over 40 home runs the 2 times he's done it. And it took a lot of games played. And I don't know that he's going to get 150 games played this year. And I would love to take the over there. Olson, 40 home runs. I'm going to take the under. I feel like he's changing his profile to be more well-rounded, higher average, but maybe fewer home runs, maybe some more doubles in there. So I'm going to take the under on Olson. And then Baldwin, 850 OPS. I'm going to take the under there as well. Hope I'm not being too pessimistic here. I'm only taking the over on Chris Sale, 200 Ks. Baldwin was the 810 OPS guy last year. That's a big jump. Now, realistically, it wouldn't take a whole lot for him to get there, and I think he's certainly capable of it, but a lot more is going to be asked of Baldwin this year, too. I mean, a lot was asked of him last year as a rookie, but this year, second season, book out on him a little bit more. Going to be that guy. I know he was, again, last year from the beginning, but, still, now you're kind of expecting it out of Drake Baldwin. So I'm going to take the under there, but I still think he'll be an 800 OPS guy. And then rank these OPS by end of season. Riley, Murphy, Profar, and Albies. I'm going to take Riley, Profar, Albies, Murphy. They all rank 6 through 9 in OPS on the team over the last 3 years and in that order. Riley, Profar, Albies, and Murphy. As I've said, I'm really high on Profar. I think he's going to have a really good season. I'm hopeful on a big bounce back for Austin Riley. I'm hopeful for all these guys. And I think there's a chance that Murphy comes back with his power, which plays a lot into OPS, with slugging being included in that. I think there's a chance that he maybe outpaces some of these guys. I don't know what to expect from Murphy at this point. And then final question here, maybe the most important question of the episode. Sethan asked, is the postcast going to be you and Lindsay this year? I hope so. I certainly plan to be part of it, although I will miss some. I'll go ahead and let you know. I have some vacation and stuff planned, and it's a lot, and that really is Lindsay's show. But I plan to be part of it as much as he allows and as much as he allows me. But waiting on that confirmation from Lindsay as well. But yes, definitely plan for me and Lindsay to be back on the postcast this year. It was a lot of fun last year. Can't wait to do it again. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're approaching 16,000 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you so much for your support there. You can help others find the podcast by just hitting that thumbs up button, hitting that subscribe button, leaving a comment down below. All those things help others find us here at Locked On Braves. We'll have a ton of content coming your way, gearing up for the regular season and into the season. If you are listening on the audio side, you can help out too. Just leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. You can find me on social media at shortstopball, or you can find the podcast at LockedOn_Braves as well. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and just a reminder, I am opening up the mailbag questions to YouTube and Instagram as well. Nobody responded on Instagram this week, so Instagram, you're letting me down. But I am opening it up to more than just Twitter, so you all can be part of the show and send in all the great questions like you did today, so that we have to have a 2-parter of our weekly mailbag episode. But I really do appreciate all your support here on the podcast, whether you just hit that subscribe button, thumbs up button, whatever. If you're part of our everydayer program, it really does mean a lot to me. So thank you so much for your support. Make sure that you continue to do so by rate, reviewing, and subscribing to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next.